Attention, people who still care. How can average citizens like us profit off making the world a better place? This is the question we ask on the Crowd Effect podcast. I am your host, Paul Lovejoy, activist investment advisor at Stakeholder Enterprise. On today's show, the 5 steps to give yourself the best possible chance at succeeding at not only investing, but just about anything. But before we get into that, I first want to tell a story. In 2013, my wife and I we bought our very first home together. And the one of the big reasons why we bought this home was because of the backyard. It had this great view, nice scenery. It also had a garden that somebody else, prior owners, had used, and you could tell there was an outline of the vegetable garden patch. And so when we moved into the house, that was one of the projects I wanted to do, is to turn this pre-existing plot of land and revitalize it and put it back into a vegetable garden. So maybe the second or third week living there, I went into the backyard and I started to dig up this pre-existing garden patch. And when I started to do this, I saw it was rich with these earthworms, and I could tell that, oh wow, this is a good patch of dirt. And so I went to the store, spent maybe $200 on equipment and seeds and such. And so I started to plant a wide variety of different vegetables, lettuce and tomatoes and broccoli and different types of herbs and strawberries, all kinds of different things, peppers, huge variety. Um, I also set up an automatic watering system. And so it was all set up. All you had to do, the timer was gone, and set it and forget it. And also, I'm very lucky because I have a mother who has written a book on container gardening for vegetables. So I also have this support system that I drew upon. And this garden was incredibly successful. So successful, in fact, that uh, we did this huge harvest right before Thanksgiving. And we were able to incorporate our vegetables in our garden into our Thanksgiving dinner. We made this incredible butternut squash pie, which is a better version of pumpkin pie with the butternut squash that we grew from our garden, among other things. We did that for 2 years in a row. This garden was incredible, produced wonderfully. I barely had to spend any time out there other than, pulling some weeds time to time. And it made me want to, because it looked so beautiful. So we lived there 2 years. We ended up moving to another place. And this new place had a really nice backyard too. It had an outdoor fireplace, really cool, but no pre existing garden patch. So that was one of my projects. Okay, I love my last garden. I want to have a garden in this place. So I took a weekend and said, okay, I'm going to start digging up a patch. And I was out on a Saturday, and maybe 6 hours I was out there digging. And I didn't really get very far. The earth was clumpy, very full of clay. It was not good soil. And I ended up giving up. I didn't even go back the next day on Sunday to even try and dig up. I was over it. It was just nothing I was interested in doing. I saw it was too much work, and so I gave up. So fast forward a couple of years later, we ended up moving again. And this time, I learned from my mistakes, and also having, my mother being an expert on container gardening. She recommended that do a raised garden bed. So I got this little wooden setup here, and I filled it up with dirt right above just regular lawn. And I set up the automatic watering system. It wasn't that big, so I didn't have a large variety of different plants to grow. Tomatoes. There was broccoli, um, cauliflower, and I had basil. I know that. So I set everything up, and I was really pumped. And then after a couple of days, I noticed there was this big water puddling right where I had my timer that was connected to the hose, and it was leaking, and it was going under the house. And that's a huge problem. You can't have water going in your house, bad for your foundation. So I turned off the water pump and the timer, and I tried to go out there. I tried to fix it, and it's just kept leaking. And I didn't feel like paying a plumber to go out and fix it. And so what ended up happening was there was no automated watering. I was manually watering, and there were times that I forgot, and uh, a plant would die, and I just didn't wasn't motivated because it didn't really look good. And so all that was left, all the plants died, other than the basil. Basil survived, and that was the only thing that grew. And I stopped watering it, and the basil plant got big. It was more of a natural setup, but I would call it a major fail. So after that fail, second time, I kind of asked myself, well, why did that original garden succeed at our very first home? And so I thought about the reasons. The first one was that it was already pre-existing garden patch. I didn't really have to do anything. It was already worked, and the earthworms and the soil was fantastic. So that was number one. That was the first thing I noticed. The second thing was the automation. The automatic watering system worked great. It didn't break, nothing like that. I didn't have to call a plumber. I wasn't spending a lot of money. So that was two. The automation worked. Number three, the variety. I did such a wide variety in that first garden that some things didn't work. The eggplant in that first garden wasn't great, and the strawberries they didn't. It takes 2 seasons to grow strawberries, and that it didn't really grow great. But because I had such a wide variety of different plants and vegetables, that it was overall successful because of this variety. So that was number three. The fourth thing I noticed was the cost. I didn't spend a lot of money on that first garden. I didn't spend a lot of money on any of the gardens because I just wasn't really willing to put that type of investment into something that's fun, more of a hobby. So the cost, I didn't spend a lot of money, and so it was low cost. That was number four. And the fifth thing I noticed was that I had this support system, and I always had it throughout all gardens, but it really helped, getting tips from my mother, to telling me, well, try to use this type of soil, try and use this type of water. And when everything works great, then having that support is huge because, oh, okay, this will make it grow better, and I should trim this, and all these little things that only an expert would know because of lots of experience. So so those are the five things that I noticed why it was successful. And so fast forward to today. Guess what kind of garden I have now? Well, it has all five of those things. It is one of these indoor self-contained hydroponic systems with automatic lights, automatic water. It's got all these different seed pods and tons of variety. The cost was just a one-time fee that my wife and I were willing to. Okay, we're willing to make this investment. It's actually beautiful inside of our home. It's aesthetically pleasing. It looks really wonderful. This green, and it's vibrant, and so the cost was there, and of course it has an app. So it has support system for you. It's got cameras in there. You can see what's going on, and the company, they'll help you out with growing. So obviously it's a major success, this indoor garden. And so this was the basis of uncovering something, working at my previous employment, which was working at a wealth strategy firm. And I was noticing that there was some clients that were very successful and other clients that weren't. And so here's going to be our, this is going to transition to our main story of the day, which are the 5 steps to success. And so I noticed what the clients that were doing well. Well, they were engaged, and they were engaged in um, pre-established investment platforms that were there. They weren't new; they were established, and they were into that. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that they were doing auto invest. They weren't like manually investing. They weren't trying to time the market. There was none of that. It was just doing the investing the same amount of money every month into the same different investments. That was number two. Number three, diversified. These clients were incredibly diversified. They weren't just investing in one type of investment. And this is when my aha moment is when I saw when it was diversification, because with the garden it was variety, and that's just kind of the two peas in a pod at some point. Variety, diversification. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is like investing is like growing a garden. And yeah, the cost, they were doing what they could afford to invest every month. And there were platforms that allowed, whether it was just a few $100s or a few $1,000s, whatever the clients were investing, that they had the cost that they could afford. And of course, the ones that were hugely successful were the ones that were engaging with me and other people within our firm. So that's when it clicked. I was like, oh, okay. So there's these 5 steps to succeed, to become successful. I was like, well, what else can this be good for? So I started to think about, well, what if I wanted to um, get it fit? Wanted to lose weight and get fit. Well, okay, what would be the first step is to get a pre-existing platform or a vehicle. So that would be, there's all these kind of, fitness gurus online with a whole program that is a pre-existing thing. I can get a gym membership. That's pre-existing. I could do a keto diet. There's tons of information on keto diet. I'm going to pick the fitness guru. Okay, so imagine if this fitness guru picked me up from work every day automatically. Oh man, am I going to get fit? Yeah, if a fitness guru is picking me up every day after work automatically, man, that really improves my chances. Okay, so what's that? That was two. The number three, diversification or variety. Imagine if this fitness guru picked me up from work every day and took me to a different place to work out. So one day it was the pool, swimming laps. The next day it was the gym. The next day maybe I was doing racquetball. The next day basketball. A variety where I was actually enjoying it. It wasn't just the same kind of workout every day. So I have a fitness guru picking me up every day after work automatically and taking me to these diverse, different locations to exercise. And imagine if it only cost me what $100 a month. Holy smokes! I think I would pay $100 a month to have someone pick me up after work every day to all these different locations. That's a no brainer. And for $100, yeah, I would do that. Um, and imagine that the $100 also included a community that would support you. Be like, yeah, you got this. Oh, get that one more rep in. Sprint hard to the finish. Having all that encouragement. Man, I don't know how I could not get fit using those 5 steps of success. I've looked at it through civilizations. You can take these 5 steps. I looked at the ancient Egyptians. And how they had You can apply it to just about anything. These five steps. Let me run down the ancient Egyptians real quick. Well, they had pre-existing the Nile Valley. Pre-existing, it would flood every year. Boom, up. It would soak it and become this incredibly rich area, fertile place to grow. And what did the Egyptians do? Well, they noticed it and they started making plants, and they automated it throughout the year by digging up these canals and different irrigation techniques to automatically water their plants throughout the year, not just during the floods. They grew a ton of different crops, not just food crops, but they also grew papyrus and flax that made paper and sandals and all and clothes and all that other kind of stuff. Cost, yeah, it was low cost. Well, they had slaves, which is horrible, but yeah, I mean, if you're using slave labor, that's going to be super cheap for you. Um, and let's see what else we had: pre-established, automatic, diverse, cost, and then a community. Yeah, I mean they had a whole government structure set up, making sure that the canals are in tip-top shape, and giving permits and licenses to operate certain canals and all this other stuff. So yeah, ancient Egypt was wildly successful for what 2,000 years, something like that. The ancient Egyptians, 2 3,000. Not a big Egyptologist, but what went wrong? Well, they weren't diverse enough. They relied heavily on the Nile flooding, and it flooded for thousands of years. So I didn't think there would be any reason for it not to flood, but all of a sudden the climate changed, and there was no longer any flooding happening for the ancient Egyptians. On top of that, their community fractured. The kingdom, the ancient Egyptian empire split into two different factions, and they were warring with each other, which made it really easy for them to eventually be conquered. So, five steps of success you can apply to just about anything, and it will give you the best possible chance to succeed. So that will bring us into our financial tip of the day, which is uh, become a crowd investor and use the five steps to success while crowd investing. There are platforms, crowd investing platforms, where it's automatically takes out of your bank account, automatically reinvests any income that was generated through your initial investments, and it just automatically invests. You're making money while you're sleeping. Diversified. There are a number, many different crowd investment platforms. Crowd investing in itself has three main asset classes. You have crowd lending, which is debt. You have equity crowdfunding, which is equity, like investing in companies. And then you have alternative crowdfunding, which primarily is real estate crowdfunding. So it's like regular investing, except it's with a crowd, and it's instead of the public market, it's the private market. Low cost. These crowd investing by nature are low cost. It's crowd investments is when a large group of people pool small amounts of money to fund a loan, a company, a business venture, or a project. So, and the low cost, some of these platforms have $10 minimum investment requirements, which even allows you to diversify even further. So with $1,000, you can be invested in 100 different projects, bank level kind of a diversification. And then support, community. That is why I started this company. I started my investment advisory firm, to be the change, and to help and support others be the change that not only they wish to see in their lives to improve their own economic lives, but to be part of the crowd that shapes capitalism. When we put our capital and we back it towards projects and people and companies that we care about, that we know aren't just in it for the bottom line, but also have our own interest our best interest, that they're looking out for companies that look out not just for their bottom line, but for their employees and their customers and their vendors and their suppliers and the communities that they serve and the environment that they operate in, and also that look out for their investors and shareholders. These are the type of companies that we want on our planet, and you can't do that with traditional investing. You can only put your capital into these companies through crowd investing, and that's why it's so important, because this is the first time in history where we can actually make a risk adjusted market return while doing good in this planet. My name is Paul Lovejoy. I am a crowd investor, and I see you are one too. If you'd like to know how to profit off making the world a better place, the three secrets to do that, go to stakeholderenterprise.com.